Hey everyone, welcome back. I do not want to stress this urgency enough. I don't want to sound alarmist, but this is the biggest deal that I have seen for brands since iOS 14.5 has come around that nobody seems to be talking about. So if you know a brand that may be impacted by these massive meta changes, please share this episode with them today. In today's episode, I'm going to be unpacking Meta's new restrictions targeting brands in sensitive industries. But I'm also going to let you know why it may not just be the brands that you think it might. There's a lot more brands than we actually realize that will be affected by this. And to me, this potentially could be Facebook Armageddon or Facebook-ageddon or however you want to say it. We're going to talk about what's changing. We're going to talk about who is affected. And most importantly, we're going to talk about what you can do to actually navigate these shifts. Let's get into it. Number one, the big news right now is Meta's new restrictions. Meta's announcement, they've recently rolled out this new restriction specifically targeting brands in sensitive sectors like health, wellness, finance, and politics. The purpose, right, the goal behind this is enhancing user privacy and aligning with global regulations. I am going to bet, and I don't know whether this is true or not, Meta, don't get mad at me, but I'm going to bet that there was some kind of lawsuit that happened with this, right? That's what I really do believe is happening here, right? What does this mean for brands though? Essentially, it's going to change how these brands in these specific categories, and we're going to get into the different categories and why you may not be safe in the video, right? So please stick around. I'm going to go through a list of all of the brands at the end of this video that are actually going to be affected and at the end of this podcast because I think it's that important. Essentially, it's going to change how you collect and use data for advertising on Meta platforms. The process is becoming more stringent, and it's not just a minor tweak. That's the crazy thing. These changes could disrupt established advertising strategies that you already have that rely heavily on data-driven insights. Here is the biggest deal and why you need to be terrified if you are an e-commerce brand or an agency that is working in the space right now. Brands are not going to be able to use bottom of funnel events like add to cart or purchases to optimize their ads, right? Even worse, you're not going to have access to this data at all. And we don't know if tools like Triple Whale or Northbeam or tools like that are going to be able to fill in these gaps. We hope so, but it looks like on Events Manager, you're not even going to be able to see add to cart. You're not even going to be able to see purchase, which is really crazy and a really big deal because Meta optimizes for what you tell it to optimize for. So if you want to optimize for, let's say, landing page views, which will still be available or which should still be available, that's the crazy thing is that it's going to find people who tend to land on pages. It doesn't mean that you're going to suddenly have, that your traffic is still going to be good. You may end up starting to get garbage traffic because of this. And that's what really, really scares me about all of this. So let's talk about what's happening. I want to give you guys a detailed breakdown, right? So first up, restricted data tracking. So Meta's essential tools like their Pixel and Conversions API are going to have limited functionality, especially for these lower funnel events such as purchases, signups, et cetera, et cetera. What this means is that brands can no longer rely on these tools to gather the detailed data on customers' action. You can't track conversions, thus you can't measure ad efficacy. But it's not just that, right? You're going to only be able to broad target, right? Precise targeting is going to be replaced with broader audience options, which in my mind is not the end of the world. I've always liked to advertise on Meta with broader audience options. But basically, there's not going to be any sort of personalization, right? This might mean that ads are not going to be as effective for you, reaching the right audience, potentially lowering the engagement and conversion rates. Now, let's talk about reclassification risks, because I think that this is a really big part of all of this. There is a risk that your brand is going to be reclassified, right? Brands that are on the periphery of these sensitive categories like skincare, supplements, fitness may be miscategorized and face the same restrictions. The problem is we all know how slow Meta is when it comes to actually fixing these issues, right? Being miscategorized can lead to unintended limitations on what you can do as an advertiser. And that's a really big deal affecting your overall marketing strategy. Remember that still the vast majority of spend, as much as you guys know if you've listened to me or watched me for any amount of time, that I am all in on TikTok Shop. the problem is, right? The problem with this is that still 70 to 80% of all dollars spent in e-commerce are happening on Meta, right? And so this is going to affect a ton of brands. Now, let's talk about who is going to be affected. We're going to talk about direct and then peripheral brands that are affected. So number one, in health and wellness. And let me give you some examples of the types of brands that are going to be directly affected by this, like absolutely, unequivocally affected by this. Number one, pharmaceutical companies selling prescription medications, right? Somebody like them are going to be incredibly affected by this. You will not be able to do any targeting. Telehealth apps offering virtual doctor consultations, that's a really big deal, that one. Mental health counseling services like BetterHelp. Brands selling CBD or THC. So for a while, they actually were able to advertise fairly easily on the platform, no longer. Companies selling weight loss supplements. That's a lot of people have weight loss claims in what they've done, and they've been able to kind of skirt around it. No longer will you be able to. Skincare brands targeting acne or eczema treatments, like Proactive, for instance. Fitness apps, weight loss specific programs, right? With fitness apps, which is funny because you're kind of tapping into, like, that's the one marketing thing that you can tap into with these apps, right? Or it's the one driver of a lot of these apps. Chiropractic clinics, brands offering anti-agement treatments like Botox. Let's talk about finance. We have like payday loan people. We have mortgage brokerage firms. That's kind of crazy, right? They can't advertise in the same sort of way that they could before. Investment apps focusing on stocks, crypto. People like Robinhood is a good example. Credit repair services, that's a big one out there. Life insurance companies targeting specific demographics. Then we have all of the sexual wellness brands that are out there. And there's a lot of them, right? And for a time, you've been able to get away with running traffic to maybe a third-party site or something like that. You no longer can do that. That is not something that you can do anymore. And I won't get into the details of all of those different brands, but you can imagine if you were attached in the sexual wellness sphere at all, or even potentially touch on that, no pun intended, that you are not able to advertise in that sort of way. Gambling and alcohol. So any online casinos, again, those have been difficult and on the periphery anyway. Say craft breweries advertising any sort of like alcohol delivery service. Again, that's always been gray anyway. Now, let's talk about the peripheral brands at risk, because I think that this is one of the biggest deals out there right now, are these peripheral brands that are at risk. So let's talk about like a wellness brand selling joint support supplements. For somebody like them, you know, they've been getting away with this totally fine. Probably very few issues on here. A yoga studio advertising memberships, right? That could be an issue. How about a juicing company focusing on detox benefits? How about just general skincare brands emphasizing hydration and glow, right? Like, those are the ones that I'm really scared about. How about gyms just promoting personal training services? They're on the periphery, but I am scared for them. Fitness and lifestyle. So fitness trackers like Fitbit, right? Could be a big deal. How about companies selling general fitness equipment like Peloton? Right? How about athleisure brands talking about health benefits of their clothing like Lulu, right? Like Lululemon, right? These are big issues. How about meal kit services with healthy eating options? We don't know what Meta is going to do here. We don't know how heavy-handed they're going to be. All of these people that are on the periphery, I am very, very scared about. Now, let's talk about sexual wellness for a second. What about sleepwear brands that subtly target intimate wellness? Right? How about those that sort of hint at that? Are those going to be a big deal? Beauty and wellness. How about luxury spas promoting relaxation services? How about functional food brands offering wellness claims like it supports immunity? All of these things that were totally fine to talk about before are now may not be. I'm not going to say for sure they're not going to be, but they may not actually be okay. Right? So let's just remember that there's going to be a lot of peripheral brands that operate within niches that can easily, or niches, however you like to say it. I am Canadian, and so I like to say niches that can easily overlap with more restricted categories, right? This is going to increase the risk of being affected, right? Here's a real world example. A yoga studio promoting mental well-being might inadvertently fall under Meta's new restrictions. They didn't mean to, but they did, right? This is a really big deal. I don't think anyone's really understands what a big deal this is as much as what I have come to realize what a big deal this is. So you may remember back when Apple introduced iOS 14. 14.5, I think, was the really big one, right? That significantly impacted ad tracking and targeting. And that was a really big deal. And that shut some brands down there for a while. Now, brands had to rethink their marketing strategies overnight. And guess what? Everything was okay in the end, right? Everything was okay in the end. But for those people who were not ready for it, it was a really, really big deal. So Meta's new restrictions are potentially even more extensive. That's the crazy thing, right? iOS 14 affected tracking on Apple devices, right? But it affected everybody, right? Meta's changes now on how data is collected and used across their entire advertising ecosystem, especially in these sensitive industries. We don't know what it's going to do. Are they still collecting the data? And is the Pixel still working on all of these sites? Because Meta's using like all of these different things that people are doing all over all these sites that they have their Pixel on, and then using an AI algorithm in the background to piece them all together and then put the right ads in front of them. Is this going to work anymore? We don't know. We don't know. It's a really big deal. This to me is advertising Armageddon. Like I'm not being dramatic here, and I hope I'm being dramatic. I really do. I hope that it's like, this was not a big deal. But I do want everyone to be very, very cognizant of what could potentially happen. And normally I'm not the alarmist one, right? If you guys know me, I am not the alarmist one, right? So with limited access to crucial data tracking, right? You may experience ad performance drop. No, you not may, you will. You are going to experience that, right? You're not going to be getting the same ROI, right? I highly suggest that after you watch this video, you think about the other platforms if you are in one of these categories. So if you're in a peripheral category, think about this. If you are in one of these categories for sure, you need to go start looking into TikTok Shop. You can come to Social Commerce Club. That's where I'm the CEO of for TikTok Shop. You need to look into YouTube, right? YouTube is a great place to advertise these kinds of products. I think that YouTube could be a really good spot here. You need to look into other Google properties, right? I think that Google is going to be a big place. AppLovin could be another really, really good place. We're seeing some crazy results over there. I was such a skeptic at first, and I am now getting off of the skeptical train there. But again, if you're a user, great. You've got good privacy. Like, I think it's going to be beneficial for consumers in the end, maybe. I still don't know. I don't know how this all works because I just don't think that there is such a thing as privacy. When we go on these platforms, that is what we're giving up, right? We go on there for free. It doesn't cost us anything. So we go on and it's free and then we can leave, right? And we can leave without paying anything, but we were paying with the advertising, right? That's kind of what we give up for this. So let's really get down to the meat of it here. Okay? What you need to do is you need to avoid sensitive terms, okay? Adjust your messaging and get a pen and paper out for this part here, okay? So first, number one, adjust your messaging, right? Avoid using sensitive terms that may trigger the new restrictions, please, please, please. Instead, focus on general wellness and aspirational benefits. Here's an example. Instead of saying lose weight with our supplements, say try to achieve your fitness goals with our premium products. If you've been in sensitive categories before, you're going to know that this is the way that you need to do things, right? Next, you want to leverage your first-party data, right? Build and nurture your own audiences through channels like email and SMS. I am constantly saying that, right? You do not own any of these channels. Even advertising on there is a privilege, okay? It's a privilege that Meta is very happy for you to pay for. If you haven't been doing this, this is just the time to start, right? First-party data is so much more reliable. I love first-party data. It is what I'm obsessed with, both for me and what I do as a person out in the world, as well as for our agency. And over the years, I've owned a lot of brands. I've owned 7 different brands over years. First-party data is all the data that you want at all times. Diversify your channels, right? Like we've talked about before. Do not put all your eggs in the one Meta basket. I totally understand, but start to diversify. Look into places like TikTok Shop. Look into Google. Diversify some of those channels. I suggest going hard on YouTube. YouTube is a really good place for this, and their advertising continues to get better. Their algorithm continues to get better. Just remember, Google has way more data points than anybody out there right now. Though I am very worried about Google search, that'll be for another video. Focus on creative that's engaging content with the privacy standards, right? You always want to keep those privacy standards now in the back of your mind. Think about storytelling, UGC. Use some interactive elements, maybe like polls, quizzes, right? All of that kind of stuff is really good. Something else that I will make a video on and a podcast on at some point also will be ManyChat. I think that there's still some massive opportunities for us to use ManyChat as well. Lastly, just keep looking at your brand's classification, right? Talk to your Meta rep if you need one. If you want to, if you're like, man, this is just all way too much. Guys, Social Commerce Club, we are experts at all of this stuff. This is what we do. This is not a big pitch for our agency or anything, but go to socialcommerceclub.com, book a call. see what our team would do in this circumstance, because it's really, really important. The changes are happening quickly. Meta's still not given us a date. They have said January of 2025, and this video is going to be coming out January 3rd. That's actually, I'm recording it and putting this out here all on the same day. Think about these changes are going to influence your long-term strategy and your customer relationships, right? That is the big thing. It is all about long-term strategy. All right, let's land this plane. I've got a couple more points that you cannot miss. Meta's new restrictions are going to shake up everything when it comes to advertising. Just remember that. You're going to have limited data tracking, right? You're going to have to go broader targeting, which is good. I mean, honestly, if you are part of a brand that may be affected, that you're on the periphery, you need to take these steps seriously. Share this episode with your network. Anybody who is advertising a lot on these channels, share this with them, because this is a really big deal. The sooner that we all adapt, the better that we're going to be navigating these changes together. Thank you so much. I hope that that this was really helpful for you guys today, and that you guys are going to take these changes incredibly seriously, because it could mean the difference between having a thriving business, a thriving e-commerce brand, and not. Also, this is your chance to get onto TikTok Shop. We are running one of the biggest agencies in North America that is helping people on TikTok Shop learn TikTok Shop, understand what is going on TikTok Shop. I have all sorts of goodies for you at all times. Check the description below, and I'm sure that there's something good down there for you today that I'm going to be giving away, because I love to give away anything for free down there. Thank you guys so much, and till next time.